if you've been in the gun community for even just a little while, or you haven't been hiding your head under a rock for the last 10 years, then you've probably heard the term, does it take Glock mags? And to answer your question, when it comes to many B&T platforms, the answer is yes. The APC9, the GHM9, and the SPC9 all share the same lowers. They can take Glock and P320 magazines. The Glock and the B&T mag versions are also currently available in aluminum. All these lowers share M4 style controls, except for the nuances involved with the Glock magazine. I'll get into that in a minute. So if you've been debating getting a B&T and you're a Glock guy, or you've just been wondering about the Glock lower and you want some details on that, I'm going to give you some up-close pictures, and I'm going to walk you through it right now, so stay tuned. Okay, so that basically brings us to the pros and cons. For the Glock, the first pro that I like is the right side mag release is just a bit easier to actuate, but it is a little bit more of a snag hazard. It can also be pulled out and broken easier than the B&T lower, so it's not as robust, which I guess is kind of a wash, which brings us to the second pro of the Glock lower, and that is that the mags drop free a lot easier. The fitment on the mag well is a little bit looser. You can just drop them free really easily. They'll just fall right out. Okay, the third pro of the Glock lower is going to be the mag well. The angle just leaves a little bit more room for your front hand. If you're on like an APC9K where you need that extra room, you get like the tiniest little bit more room. So that is a plus. And it's kind of ironic because a lot of these pluses actually have negatives with them as well. And before I get into those, I'm just going to point out the last pro of the Glock lower, and that is mag compatibility and mag availability. Undeniable. You can put any Glock mag in this thing, it's going to run. If your sidearm is a Glock, now you only need one kind of magazine. And now I'm going to get to the cons. The first con is that it just looks odd. In my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, it's just not aesthetically pleasing. It is what it is. Pretty stupid. And that brings us to the second con. Ignoring the hideous mag angle and putting all aesthetics aside, the mag angle just makes it slightly harder to load. In my experience and other people's experience too, it just doesn't feel natural. It just doesn't feel as fluid as the B&T lower. I know this is all trainable, but this is just my personal experience. In order to redesign the lower to accept Glock mags and keep the same shape as the original lower, they had to add a void in the mag well up front. This void can sometimes catch on the top of a round when you're inserting a magazine. It's totally trainable as well. It's just a little bit less intuitive than the B&T version. It's not a huge deal because both versions take an aftermarket jet funnel to ease with the reloads. And that brings us to the next con, which is the left side mag release placement. It is just not great. The button is in front of the mag, and compared to the B&T mag where you can literally grip it and rip it like a classic M4 style and you can hit it with your thumb, you can't do this. You have to literally move your finger and simultaneously you can't grip the magazine. It's just odd. You have to use the other side. It is what it is. It's a training thing again. You just got to train to use it differently. Learn how to do some sort of finger origami to reach the index finger over to the button. Overall, it's usable, it's just different, and it's not my optimal lower. Fun fact, in Canada, the Glock lower gets a 10 round capacity, where a B&T lower gets 5 round, due to the fact that the TP9 and the APC9 have full auto variants. And the final con of the Glock mag lower is going to be the fact that there's so much slop between the magazine and the mag well that the magazine actually moves around and makes some noise if you're manipulating the gun. If you're trying to be stealth, you might want to get the B&T lower. Okay, so that about wraps it up for the Glock mag lowers. Now we're going to get on to the B&T lowers. Okay, the first pro of the B&T lower is going to be that it looks badass. The magazine angle feels natural to reload. It just looks good. It looks how it's supposed to be. The second pro to the B&T lower is going to be the left side mag release placement. It's perfectly placed like an M4, so you can use it with your thumb when you grab the magazine and strip it out. And the fourth pro is going to be the fact that the magazines don't rattle around and make any noise for the stealthy setup, and they still drop free. They just don't make any noise. So that about wraps up the pros of the B&T mag lower. Now I'm going to get on to the cons. Okay, the first con of the B&T mag lower is going to be the stiff right side magazine release. It's in the perfect place. It's a little bit smaller than the Glock lower. It's actually less snag prone and it's more robust, but it's also stiffer and it just doesn't work as easily. You have the button on the left side in the perfect place, so it really doesn't matter. And that brings us to the second con of the B&T mag lower, and that is that the mags don't drop freely as easily. They drop free, they just don't drop as easily as the Glock lower. And the third con of the B&T lower is going to be the mags themselves. They're expensive, they're more brittle than a Glock mag, they're harder to find, So that's basically all I can think about as far as cons on the B&T Mag lower. Both of these lowers are relatively the same weight. If you're trying to go for the ultimate lightweight package, the B&T lower is a few ounces lighter. I'd say in conclusion, unless you're Canadian, you already have a ton of Glock mags and you're really set on Glock mags, or you just actually like the way the Glock mags look, then go with the B&T mag lower. And there's actually great aftermarket options made by a company that usually gets ridiculed for their bad magazines, ironically. And the new magazines have bumpers, which also makes them a lot more robust. And just get the lower that fits your use case best. Don't worry about the haters. Just get whichever one you think is going to work best. You can always trade later down the road or get another one. Because it shouldn't be harder to decide what lower you want than it is to decide what actual platform from B&T you want to get. And if you need that help, then check out all my other videos on my channel. Subscribe and like if you're feeling the B&T content. I'm trying to grow to 1,000 subs this year. Thanks to my 130 subs right now. Peace.